Ah, there you have it. Okay, right. Welcome everyone. Right, we're on the trail of Moshiach. Sounds quite like Indiana Jones-esque, doesn't it? We're on the trail of Moshiach. Last time out, we discussed a couple of things. We discussed what the world would be like when Moshiach comes. If you remember the different, world peace, awareness of Hashem, yet the world may or may not still be natural. We haven't yet fully discussed whether the world will be around for whatever X number of years forever. We'll get there. Um, this week, we are discussing free will in the times of Moshiach, and then we're going to look at predicting Moshiach. Oh, it's fake Moshiach, fake Moshiachs, excuse me, stuff like that, and how there were predictions, which, to be honest, vast majority of which haven't come true. So let's see. Okay, so the first thing is free will. We have done this, I think, in the past when it came to the free will unit, but let's do a quick revision. It's as follows. Our world is very much about free will, and we did that at length. We spent about 7 or 8 weeks on that. Um, the question is, what about free will in the times of Moshiach? So here we have basically a straight out argument. The Ramban in Parshas Vayelech, I think, says that there will be no free will in Moshiach's time. Straight out, he says over here, from the time of creation. Let's see over here. Free will was never, excuse me, not never, free will was given over, each person choosing to be righteous or wicked. In other words, we have free will. The same was true throughout the times of the Torah, and rewards is granted commensurate with one's choices. Basically, we had free will. However, we're going to move into a different zone in the times of Mashiach, because the choice to do good will be natural. The heart will not desire to do anything improper. I like my teenage kids. Man will return to the state he was in during the times of Adam Harishon before his sin. Yeah. That is the Ramban, who, remember, holds that basically the Messianic era and resurrection of the dead, etc., that is main reward. And therefore, the fact there's no free will doesn't faze me because you're already into the reward phase of history. Right? The Rambam disagrees because it sounds like there will be reward and apparently, therefore, free will, because you can't have, I guess, you can't have reward without free will. So he says as follows. The elders and prophets did not desire the days of Moshiach, not in order to rule over the world, nor just in order to rule over the non-Jewish population, in other words, idolaters, and not just for street cred, in other words, to be elevated, put on a pedestal, here are the Jews, we've loved them all along, we were just pretending, kind of thing. V'lo kadei lechel v'lishtos v'lismoach, and not to be happy and drinking and eating. Yeah, notice it says eat and drink and then happy, meaning you're Jewish. You wouldn't have had happiness without eating and drinking first, of course, right? Ela kadei sheyu pnuyim b'Torah v'chachmasa. The reason why we desire Mashiach is so we can be free to study Torah and delve into its wisdom. And nothing will interrupt us from that. In order to merit the next world. Lovely peace. In other words, we want Mashiach because we'll be free from everything else. We'll study Torah and then we'll get the next world. Now, I don't understand. Asks everyone implicitly, if there's no free will, you're not going to get reward in the next world. You're just doing things because it's what you're programmed to do. There's no battle, there's no challenge. It would seem from the fact that the Rambam says here that there's reward, that therefore there would be free will as well. Make sense? In which case, it'd be arguing with the previous source, namely the Ramban. Great. Okay. We're happy to have arguments. We can accept that. Like we're okay. We're not going to hyperventilate at this, the Jewish argument. It could be, as we said before, that argument is based on the other argument they have once upon a time, which is whether the main reward is the world of Moshiach, that's the Ramban, resurrection, or the Rambam, second source, which is the main reward, if you remember, is the world of souls. Right? And therefore this kind of flows on, right? The other way of saying it, there is a way of saying actually there's no debate whatsoever, meaning they all agree. This is this lovely piece of the Maharal below. It's a very cute thing the Maharal says. He said, supposed something was hard for you, but you worked on it so much such that it becomes easier. Right? So he says the Maharal, hi Simon, says the Maharal that you then get reward for you get reward still, even though it's easy for you. Why? Because you're the one who put it out of the range of challenge. Make sense? And I was let, maybe I'll flesh that a little bit more. Let's say someone was born to put, not born to, that'd be funny, born to put tefillin on every day. Yeah, like as soon as he came out the womb, it's like, right, give me my tefillin, right? But it's someone for whom it's really easy to put tefillin on every day, right? And then they do it by rote, they do it almost in their sleep, like it's totally easy, no problem. Now, that person is not going to get that much reward for putting on tefillin. Oh, they'll get some reward in its amazing mitzvah, but compared to the person who, I don't know, for argument's sake, his parents said he's not allowed tefillin, and he spent his bar mitzvah money buying tefillin, and he has to really struggle to put them on, and it's hard, and he still pushes himself. That person is going to get much more reward for putting on tefillin because he's gone against the grain. It's a challenge, right? Now, suppose that the guy who for whom it was really hard to put on tefillin, over the course of X number of days, weeks, months, years, it then becomes easier for them because the habit and create a good routine. Do they now no longer get reward for it because it's or as much reward because it's easier? So says the Maharal, no, they do get reward. You know why they get reward? Because they're the one who's kicked it out of their challenge zone into an easy zone. And if they're the one who precipitated that, they get the reward as if it was hard all along. It's a nice piece and it makes a lot of sense. Therefore, the Maharal, with this, it could be there's no argument above, meaning that even the Rambam would agree that there's no free will in Moshiach's times, just the reward you get is for your prior effort in bringing the era or realm of Moshiach. Yeah, nice piece.
Okay. Yeah.
And therefore, it could be they're all agreeing. There's no free will Moshiach. The reward is a separate point. It's because you've brought that upon yourself by bringing Moshiach here. And therefore, you've made it. It's no longer a challenge. Great. Okay, that's that. If you got that, great. If not, that's why we record it. I want to move on to predicting Moshiach. So here is something which I think is very cool. I think it's a lovely little mini topic, and I think we've got enough time to cover this tonight, albeit, as you know, we do speak quite quickly in this shit. That is as follows. Predicting Moshiach, yeah? Is it a good idea, bad idea, forbidden, recommended? Kind of where does it land? Like, where does it land? I don't really I don't really see too many people teaching, what's the word? Teaching, predictions when Moshiach will come. I happened to look, I just finished a shir I was giving on Sefer Daniel, which is very good. Not my shir, the book. And the Malbim at the end of Sefer Daniel predicts when Moshiach is going to come, and he's explaining the verses. Daniel himself makes predictions about when Moshiach is going to come. The problem is it's really, 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 really cryptic. He's talking about these esoteric times and kind of you have to work out what they are. Even the unit of time he uses is never clear, neither when he's counting from. It's very, very unclear. Anyway, so the Malbim at the very end of Daniel, he says, right, my prediction, and he kind of goes through the various psukim of Daniel, and he says, I'm writing in the 1850s. So he dates when he's writing. He says that in the paragraph. And by my prediction, in 62 years, whenever it is, I think it comes out as 1913 or something like that, Mashiach will definitely come by then. Right? 1912, 1913, 14, something like that. Right? Now, I'm assuming, although I should probably just Google it, the Malvin passed away before then. I'm assuming. Those who are nodding, Sue, is that
That
because?
sounds. I've read something, but I can't remember what.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So if anyone wants to
As
quickly
ever, there's so
Google
many.
when the Malvin, if Gideon was here, he'd definitely do it. But when the Malvin passed away, either way, the prediction did not come true. Right. So the question is, A, is it a good idea to predict? B, if not, why did lots of people predict? And C, why did they get it wrong? Were they just overly eager and therefore, or is there something more to it? Good. Okay, so excuse me.
But
Goodness
then,
me.
isn't there a thought that we have to accept that it is the Mashiach? So part of it is, could the Mashiach arrive and not enough people realize, agree, go along with it?
Hopefully not. There is an eventuality like that, but we just hope not.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, says the Gemara in Sanhedrin. No, it doesn't. Sorry, says the Rambam. No, it says the Gemara in Sanhedrin. Sorry, I'm getting confused. This is this source here. Amar Rav Yonasan says Rav Yonasan the following: Tipach atzman shamachashvei kitzin. Very complimentary. Those who calculate the Moshiach date, their bones should rot. Isn't that beautiful?
Okay.
Shahayu
Okay.
Omer, they said, Kevin because people would say, Kevin Shiges Kates, once the time period arrives, Beloba and doesn't, and he hasn't come. In other words, once that time period has elapsed, that you predicted the Mashiach would come by then, and it hasn't, and that he hasn't, Shuv Eino Ba, then people think, oh, he's never going to come. So what should you do? Elachakelo, just wait for him. Just wait for him. Interesting, right? Again, don't predict because you might disappoint. Just patiently wait. Patiently wait. Interesting, right? Okay, so it needs a lot of discussion. I've written my summary over here. Firstly, there were loads and loads of rabbis who predicted the date for Moshiach's arrival. Loads of them. Yeah, no one. And number two, the Rambam himself has a tradition. He writes this in a letter. I think we actually got that. We got this later on in this pamphlet. That he has a tradition that prophecy will return to the Jewish people before Mashiach arrives, and he gives a date for that, and that has passed. Right? Even though the Rambam himself codified that above Gemara and was also kind of very, very skeptical in terms of predicting Mashiach. Right? So the question is kind of how that works. In other words, why were they all predicting, yet the Gemara clearly says you're not allowed to? Good question. And also, what does it mean their predictions were wrong? And so the concept seems to be as follows. The first thing to debunk, or the first thing to clarify, maybe we should say, is that this Gemara we started with, there are two kinds of statements in the Gemara, if I can put this broadly. One is halachically, sorry, halachic, in other words, there's a ban, technical ban, and the other one is advisory. So the question is, which is this? So it sounds like most understood this not to be a technical prohibition to predict Moshiach, but it was like the Gemara saying it was ill-advised. It's not a good idea. Why? Because you'll disappoint people if you get it wrong. Okay, so based on that, or with that context and backdrop, we have various different commentaries that then explain why one would be able to predict Mashiach. So the following. It says like this. The Abravanel firstly writes, very interesting, that the Gemara that says you can't predict Mashiach, it was talking about a specific way of predicting Mashiach. It's a remarkable thing. He says it's limited to stargazing. But if you whacked it out through, I don't know, the Psukim, you read Daniel or whatever you did, that's a totally different story. Interesting, right? Nice. Alternatively, the Ramban, in a book called Sefer Geula, aptly named, the Book of Redemption, he says the Gemara's ban was only in effect during the Gemara's time, because then Mashiach was really far away. But not closer to the time of Mashiach, then that's okay. Right? Interesting. The Ramban felt that 1100 or whenever he lived, that was close to the times of Mashiach. Right? Like I said, it's a remarkable thing, the number of rabbis who predicted Moshiach and predicted Moshiach to arrive not long after they died. Right? It's like an interesting thing. In other words, everyone understood they were on the cusp of Moshiach and kind of just didn't quite make it. All right. Others, by the way, do say the kind of couple of things, which are firstly that the years whereby Moshiach was predicted, events did happen in those years in history. Whereas they weren't like boring years, and therefore there could have been something in the air or something happening. That's number one. Number two is the Vilna Gaon, who says as follows. Do you remember we learned that there was two ways Moshiach can arrive? There's like a deadline, and then there's that's called Kates or Be'itar, and there's something called Achishena, where Moshiach can be brought early. Remember that? Yeah. So the Vilna Gaon goes a little bit further. So actually here, I'm going from here if you want. And he says that every single generation has their own Kates, which means in every generation there's a particular time whereby Moshiach is more likely to arrive. Right? Every generation has that. Interesting, right? If every generation has that, then it could be these predictions were latching on to these particular kitzim where it was more likely, but ultimately it didn't happen. Right. Anyway, that is that. Okay, there is a Rambam over here, which I was thinking about treating you to. But I'm just going to show you how long it is. You ready?
Hmm.
Okay. It's there. It's there. It's there. It's there.
Wow.
And that's the shortened version.
Where's
Um,
the English?
I know it was too long to translate. So I thought what I do for the last few minutes is I give you a brief summary. I kind of like read along, and then next year we're going to start this topic, which is Tchias HaMesim, the resurrection of the dead. Now, at the moment, and I'll tell you otherwise, it looks like there won't be a share next week. I'm sorry, please don't shoot me,
Mm.
because I've got a diary clash with a seed event. So at the moment, no share. I apologize. If that changes, like I said, I'll let people know in the group. But let's have a quick look at part of what the Rambam says, and then we'll wrap it up for the evening. So the bit, by the way, about predict, we'll do the last bit first because I think it's the most exciting. He says like this. Look at this one. He says, "Amita say taburia das." You can the time when Mashiach will come is unclear. We don't know. Aber yesh etzenu Kabbalah gedola in place. I've got a tradition. Kibaltia sama avi. I received it from my father. Shekira ma'aviv, who received it from his father and may Avi Aviv from his grandfather. Yeah, the who kibel adavar, and he also received it. It's quite cool. This is the Rambam speaking. V'chein adavar al tchilas hagala shel Yerushalayim, and this tradition went all the way back till the time we were kicked out of Yerushalayim. Right? And he quotes a pasuk. Now, what is this tradition that was passed down? The Be'er David explanation is Shenevuas Bilam Ramaz, the nevuah, the prophecy of Bilam hinted Shetachzar Hanavu Yisrael Acha Shetivsek Mehem. That prophecy will once again return to the Jewish people. How so? V'sheish b'Torah psukim, there are various verses she'al pi she'akavana b'hem l'shum inyan, af al pi ki yesh remez le'inan acher. That certain verses, even though they mean one thing, they can simultaneously hint to something else. Interesting. As it says in reference to Yaakov Avinu to his children, Redu Shama, it says go down there. Redu literally just means to go down. It's a standard verb. She'ikvu Mitzrayim kaminin Redu, and the hint was that we would be in Egypt for the numerical equivalent of the letters of the word Redu. Now, Resh is 200. And Dalid, excuse this, Dalid is
Mhm.
Reish is 200. Sorry, Dalid is 4. Thank you. And Vav is 6. So
6.
210. Shemasayim ve'es Hashanim, it's 210 years. And that's how long we were in Egypt for. So you see, some verses can literal and they can also hint as well at the same time. And he quotes other psukim, for example, where the word venoshantem is used over here, where we would what's it called? We'd be in the land of Israel. He says and that reference, Sheyashavnu Beretz Yisrael Miyom Shenichsav Galos Hamelech Yachid Minim Nishantem. We'd stay in the land for the gematria of the word Noshantem until we were kicked out. Hem Shmona Meos Arbaim V'Sheish Shana. Yeah, that's 846 years. Chazar and many more. Fine, okay. Now, what's he talking about? So he says, one second, one second. Oh. So he says as follows. He says, Shemina Esahi, and go over here. From that time, it's referring to the time of Bilam. Ishlach Shov Kamein Sheyesh Mesheshes Mebereshis Vados Ais Vatachzar Hanavuli Israel. Basically, another few thousand years after Bilam's prophecy, we will we will have prophecy again. This prophecy was said initially on the 40th. Sorry, this prophecy was said on the 40th year that we left Egypt, and therefore Timsat Chalata Cheshbon Ad Ha'is Alpayim Meis Shmonim Shana. Right, and therefore this prophecy would return after 2,488 years. Yeah, and he does a calculation. He says, therefore, according to this, Israel, when will prophecy return to Israel? In 4,976 years. Yeah, and then he says, and that will be the prelude to Mashiach. So we're now in what year, everyone? 5. 5785, I
5786.
think.
5786.
5786.
Sorry, 5786. Oops, I'm ahead of my time. Yeah, so the Rambam said that the prophecy would return the year 4976. So you can do
Oh,
the maths. That is, I don't know, 1,000 something years ago.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
There you are. So that's just one example again in terms of predicting Moshiach, which ultimately did not come true. Again, the idea is I don't think it's a negative, meaning they're using various verses to predict Moshiach. Again, we're not hanging our hats on them. We know that Moshiach can come, in some times be more likely, some less likely, and we hope any day he'll come. The fact that people have anticipated and predicted is not going to kind of throw us off our version of Jewish history. I think that's quite an important point. Okay, next, let's just preview next week quickly. No, let's not share next week, sorry. 2 weeks to our next topic, please go to Chias HaMesim. That is going to be about really the world of future. We'll do the Beis Hamikdash, which we're going to do after that, is what is life going to be like with the resurrection of the dead? Sounds funny, right? What will we come back as? How will that work? All of that, please God, to come. Good?
Mm.
All right. Thank
Thank you very
you.
much.
Okay.